Before I start talking in detail about our work in this region, I want to just say a little bit about who the National Infrastructure Commission is and why this is why I'm here in many ways. The National Infrastructure Commission was set up about 18 months ago by the previous Chancellor to provide genuine long-term independent advice to the government about the country's infrastructure priorities, about where current policy is not taking us where we need to be in the future, and about how the gaps in infrastructure provision can best be met to try and support the development of a really coherent long-term pipeline of infrastructure projects, but also to develop a coherent and a sensible long-term policy framework which will enable infrastructure decisions to be taken in a consistent and a decisive way over the coming years. We do that in a number of ways. We're working at the moment on the first National Infrastructure Assessment, which is a cross-cutting 10 to 30-year look at infrastructure priorities across all of the major economic infrastructure sectors. But we also do it by undertaking a rolling programme of studies into particular pressing infrastructure challenges. We've carried out a number of those already. We've looked at the transport infrastructure needs of London. We've looked at intercity transport in the north of England. We've looked at the next generation of telecommunications. But at the moment, we're halfway through quite a substantial project looking at the infrastructure needs of the broad corridor covered by the England's Economic Heartland Partnership that runs from Oxford through Milton Keynes across to Cambridge. We've developed a team to undertake that work that brings together civil servants with experience in the key departments, but also a number of secondees, including secondees from local government and people from someone who has a background in this area. And we're also working with a range of expert consultants, including again some small and medium-sized enterprises who actually know about the area here itself and bring some real first-hand knowledge of how the region operates and what its needs are. And I'm going to tell you some things that undoubtedly I suspect you already know, but what we found in the first part of our work, which culminated in an interim report shortly before Christmas, is that the corridor connecting Cambridge, Milton Keynes and Oxford is genuinely a national asset. It plays host to world-leading universities, as you can see from where we are today. It plays host to world-leading high-tech firms in the digital space, also in the automotive space and a number of other areas. And it's got perhaps the most highly skilled workforce in the country, certainly the most highly skilled workforce outside a very small part of central London. And the towns and cities in the corridor are amongst the fastest growing in the UK as well. They make a substantial contribution to our national income, they make a substantial contribution to our tax revenues and to our trading accounts. And if the UK is going to succeed in the global economy and deliver a robust industrial strategy, it is going to have to build on the strengths of this area. As I say, none of these are things you don't know. So where do we start to come in? Well, it was in recognition of this that we were asked last year to undertake this study and to provide government with proposals for how you could maximise the potential of the corridor as a single knowledge-intensive cluster. The opportunity is to develop what is currently a series of separately successful towns, cities and communities into a major economic corridor. The corridor is, I'm always wary about glib statements of this kind. I'm a civil servant, not a politician, but I think it's genuinely true to say the corridor could be the UK's equivalent to Silicon Valley, but that is not guaranteed, and there are a lot of steps that need to be taken to make that happen, and that's where we hope that the work that we've done can help to make a difference. So since March last year, we've engaged with stakeholders from across the corridor, many of whom are here today. We issued a call for evidence, to which many of the people in this room responded, and thank you for doing so. We've undertaken a programme of analytical work with our third-party consultants, the outputs of which will be published on our website shortly. And we've identified that we think the economic potential of this corridor is going to be held back and going to be constrained over time, quite seriously, by a lack of sufficient and suitable housing and by weaknesses in east-west connectivity across the corridor, and that these two problems are joined together and that there's a real opportunity to tackle them coming up. The success of the towns and cities in this corridor has fueled exceptionally strong demand for housing, but this demand has simply not been met by supply. The area is not planning for and is not delivering enough new homes. That is a simple fact. Local assessments, not work that we have done, but the local assessments themselves suggest that the area needs over 20,000 new homes per year. But local plans, when you add them together, only add up to about 16,000. And actually delivery is lower still. Delivery is only at around 12,000 houses a year. So the area is experiencing a rolling undersupply of as many as 8,000 houses a year. This shortfall in housing is leading to high and rising house prices, high and rising rents, and low levels of affordability across all tenures. I don't think there's any lack of knowledge about the housing issues in Oxford and Cambridge. Average house prices in those cities are around 12 to 13 times average incomes. But this isn't just an Oxford and Cambridge problem. Parts of Buckinghamshire, Oxfordshire and Bedfordshire are also seeing average house prices around 10 times the average salary. And even in places like Milton Keynes that have historically been affordable, we're seeing house prices rise far faster than the national average. And it's not just a housing issue, it is a fundamental challenge to the future growth of the economy in the area. Many communities across the corridor enjoy near full employment. Without growth in the population and labour supply and provision of homes, future growth is going to be constrained. Companies are telling us that if they had known these problems were coming up, they might not have invested in this corridor, and over time they're going to be thinking about moving parts of their work outside. And the housing crisis is exacerbated by poor east-west transport connectivity. Rather than connecting the principal economic centres, the forces of history have effectively meant that transport in this area is focused on connections to London. But this means travel between these growing economic centres, these productive towns and cities, is incredibly difficult. I'm not going to tell you what you don't know, but the only way to get by train from Oxford to Cambridge is to go into London and out again. And the best public transport, the best road journey, if you're lucky, would take you 3 hours. The best public transport link is by an X5 coach service, which takes 3.5 hours if you're lucky. So there's a transport problem, there's a housing problem, and the two of those are joined together as well. Part of the reason that housing is so hard to deliver is that the current transport system isn't enabling the housing that's needed. So investment in transport and investment in that infrastructure can make a genuine difference, and there is a once-in-a-generation opportunity coming to make the most of that. Rapid progress is being made in terms of the development of a new rail link, the East-West Rail Service, and of an improved road link, the Oxford-Cambridge Expressway. And this is coming up, and it's coming up fast. These are national schemes. Up to now, development has been led by a combination of regional and national work, but the national benefits are significant. But the regional benefits are important as well. Even just looked at as transport schemes. They'll support and enable the east-west connections that allow businesses and cities in this area to work together more effectively. But that's only part of the story. Looking at them solely as a railway scheme and a road scheme is going to massively underplay the impact that these could have in enabling new housing development if you plan them correctly. They both have the opportunity to open up major new sites for housing and commercial development, enabling well-connected transport hubs and interchanges and well-connected communities to be built up around them. And if we're going to achieve that, if we're going to tackle the area's housing crisis, we need to make the most of that. We need to design them properly to promote and enable well-planned and intelligent development at scale. But this is going to require a fundamental shift in the way that local and central government and local authorities collaborate on economic, spatial and infrastructure planning. It's encouraging that there are good examples of this across the corridor at the moment. There's the Oxfordshire Growth Board, the Cambridge and Peterborough Combined Authority, the Fast Growth Cities Network, and of course England's Economic Heartland Partnership, who brought together today's event. The challenge is going to be to develop local and regional collaborations that are deeper and wider still. Over the coming months, the Commission, and before we deliver our final recommendations to government, the Commission is keen to advance discussion on how local and national government can deliver an integrated plans for jobs, homes and transport infrastructure across the area. We are equally keen to progress the debate about the form and function of any new governance arrangements that ensure that infrastructure and the planning for homes and commercial development that works around it operate in an integrated way. We're shortly to publish a discussion paper designed to stimulate debate on these issues. I would encourage you all to read it, to respond, and to help move the debate forward. If you can get this right, then there's an opportunity to transform this area into a major economic corridor capable of firing the UK economy. But I come back again to what I think is the key point. There is a once-in-a-generation, probably more like once-in-a-century opportunity coming up here. There is real momentum behind East West Rail and behind the expressway. No one's going to come along anytime soon and build a second round of these schemes, so you need to grasp the nettle now and make sure that as these two schemes are developed and delivered over the coming years, they're done in a way that delivers the benefits that you want and the benefits that are going to make this region a success. If they're driven purely by national politics, if they're driven purely within Whitehall, then that opportunity from your point of view is going to be missed. I hope the work that the National Infrastructure Commission is doing is helping to catalyse that, but there's a real opportunity for you here, and I'd really encourage you to grasp it, to work with us to make the case to Whitehall, but also to make the case yourselves through your own networks and your own routes. If you miss this opportunity, the area risks being left behind its international competitors. If between us we grasp the nettle, I think there's something very exciting that can be delivered here. Thank you very much.